to some areas that we should be looking at. You have published a couple of books. You just mentioned some of them now. Dress to Kill. I have some here. Ribbons and Rings. That seems to say to us that the educational background was deeply and profoundly rooted.
Yes.
Do we still have the same structure now? Do you think our young people are being fed with the right amount of quality information, either in terms of even faculties, in terms of the contents they're getting and all that? Do we have that kind of...
There's a challenge. There is education, but we don't know if education is the same for everyone now. Unfortunately, we have a dichotomy today, and we must face that reality. Kids who are able to go to private schools, quality private schools, pardon me to qualify that. Yes, quality private schools are more likely to get good education. Whether that translates into good life is another matter. Kids who do not have the privilege of going to public schools, of going to private schools, but end up in the public schools, will suffer immensely. Today you hear grammar and you wonder. Look, I had bad grammar when I went to school. It's not that things were perfect. I went to a public primary school, so it was tough. My first year in the secondary school, which was a mission school, my very first term was a big challenge. I would be saying, I went there. I goes in.
I was not there.
And those who went to primary will start laughing. It took a couple of months for me to shape up. But I shaped up because I had the opportunity to shape up. I went into university. I did not have the privilege of going to a private university. I went to a public university. But I was not given the liberty. Things were not perfect. Things were already going down. But I was not also allowed to just act anyhow. I had the support of my family, the support of my church, the support of mentors who insisted that I stay on board. Now, today, we have a system where the public schools, give and take, you are not too sure you want to put your kids there. Even if they say to you, don't pay any money, just put them there, we'll train them. You are not too sure the person who will train is himself qualified enough to train. So you hear the grammar of someone who is a teacher and you are wondering, what is the student going to pick? You hear the grammar of someone who is trying to... I mean, you worry. So we have that challenge educationally. But it can be improved. Things can get better if only there is a will in leadership. Everything they say rises and falls on leadership. So,
but the leadership role for the church, for instance, the church seems to always been ahead in terms of educational facilities.
Yes.
So, okay, maybe we'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
Let's take a break now. You're still on to Close Flow here on NT2 Lagos Network Center, and we have Samson Adedokun with us. He's a pastor, but also you can see that he's more than a pastor. He's probably going to be a politician very soon. Please stay with us.
Hi. My name is Lillian Ama Aluko.
Ralph Mwadike.
Charles Novia.
Zach Oji.
I'm a writer,
filmmaker,
comedian, radio presenter,
screenwriter.
Now is the time to act
together.
Let's unite against
Cancer.
To do what?
Kick.
Cancer.
Out of Nigeria.
How we can make our society a healthier one.
I will do it, you do it too.
To help kick cancer out of Nigeria, text. For more info, visit www.cecpng.org. Follow on Twitter at CECP Nigeria. Let's act. Attack cancer together. Proudly supported by
Well, we're quite delighted you're still with us here on the Close Flow, and Samson Adedokun is still here with us. You know, a very vibrant pastor of the Baptist Convention. Well, that is another issue I'm going to do. Well, we're going to talk about it. This is a conversation, so don't let me say I'm going to put him on the spot. Now, let's go back to this issue of leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership in educational provision, for instance, had been one of the biggest mandates, you know, of religious organizations. So let me just say churches, you know, because some Muslim and Islamic, you know, did the same thing. But now, even the churches, yes, they are building schools, but those schools are far too expensive. Samson, you must agree with me. I mean, it is impossible. It is nearly impossible for somebody in this environment to send a child to any of these mission schools now without having to steal. So why?
It's a valid concern. Students have to pay fees. It's a very valid concern. I cannot pretend about that. Why? Why do we have that situation? Facilities have to be provided. Staff have to be paid. I can speak honestly because I've had the privilege of working in our national office, and therefore I was privy to some of the happenings in setting up our own university, for instance. And I can speak as someone who was also pastoring in a Baptist church with members. You have staff who desire to be paid like every other person is
in the
paid
society.
in the society. Now, the church has to fund that. The church has to pay. If we're going to keep the right kinds of professors, the right kinds of lecturers, they have to be paid for. How do you pay that? There are only two ways. It's either your funding is improved to pay for that, or the fees, the tuition, will take care of the quality that you want to provide. Now, the funding from the church cannot be applied
Essentially
to institutions that are called schools. Aside from educational institutions like universities, the church has seminaries where we train pastors. The church has secondary schools. The church has medical institutions. The church has all kinds of
other social services
that they provide. So we can't take all the tithes and offering and say, don't worry about paying fees to this tune. Just pay 50 naira. We will subsidize every other thing. It's not feasible. It's not going to work. Today, the economy means that something has to be paid for. Unfortunately, in setting up the schools, many years ago, because this is where the confusion comes from, we talk about the missionaries who came, who set up the schools. Believe me, nothing is ever free in life. When the missionaries came and they set up schools, somebody paid for it in their country. Somebody paid for it in their country. I was privileged to go to a mission school, secondary school. The facilities were there. We paid a little bit, but not as people would want to talk about. Why? Somebody paid for it somewhere else. Somebody made a sacrifice that, okay, we are setting up a school there, paid for it. Nothing is ever free. So we need to wake up to some reality that, yes, mission schools are expensive, they are this, they are that, but believe me, if those schools were not even being subsidized by some measure, they would be more expensive than they are now.
Okay, now, so we have a flip side of this coin now, unfortunately. So we now have a revelation, obviously, that, look, even in the previous years, in the centuries past, we had some kind of angel investors who were funding, you know, the facilities being provided here. So what is happening to our own people here? We have rich men, we have rich women, we have millionaires, we have can't they be persuaded to do what you just mentioned there?
Some of them are. Some of them are not. Every man's disposition is a choice that he makes between him and God. The church makes an appeal to say, members of the church, we have this institution, would you generously give? You see, as Baptists, we do not force. One of the things people have never understood about Baptists is our approach to how we believe God operates in our lives, which is that God works through every individual. When we share a vision, when we share an idea, we expect the individual to pray, to connect well with God, and let God say to him, yeah, go ahead and release that. Now, whether that individual is living a life that allows him to connect, and therefore to hear and do, is another thing. So the church continues to make an appeal. A lot of the funds that go into these projects because the church has said, please, let every family, let every individual give 5,000, 1,000, 1 million, 2 million, whatever you have, give. But you see, I cannot go to your house and say, because we are doing this, I know you are a rich man, therefore you must give me 10 million. I can't do that. Even though I'm your pastor, I can preach, I can appeal, I can call you, but you must make a choice, a decision about that. And there are many who are doing that. Many who are doing
Except
that.
that it's just not meeting the gap. Okay, now, let's come back to the question of gaps.
Yes.
Because it's not just an educational sector. Virtually every aspect of our lifestyle seems to be suffering one malay or the other. So now, can we begin to look at possible creative or more innovative solution to insecurity in the country? Do you think CAN, that is the Christian Nation of Nigeria, and all of that, can sit down and say, okay, look, maybe it's educational because they're saying we don't want Western education in the North, we don't want this, we don't want that, this is what we want. Can't we have a more creative solution to this insurgency problem in the country?
That's an area where I struggle a lot. I was born in Jos.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking the question.
I grew up living at peace with everyone. Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Birom, Angas, we literally lived together.
As neighbors, as brothers, as
neighbors,
sisters.
brothers. Believe me, there was not an iota of any doubt in our minds that we were people created and made by God. We valued one another's friendship. I had classmates whose homes were open to me. They were Hausas and they were Muslims. It didn't detract from my faith. I didn't try to undermine their own faith. It didn't stop me from sharing my faith. It didn't stop them from sharing theirs. So what has gone wrong? What can the church do? I really struggle because, you see, when...
Please don't struggle too much.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Okay, we lost the caller. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because when amongst religious leaders, there is antagonism already. In other words, when leaders in any part of the country are not going to allow a free flow of the other religion, it will create challenges. If I say to you, you cannot have any other thing here except this, automatically I feel oppressed. I want to react. And believe me, it is difficult to keep a man who you are oppressing forever down. At some point, you may want to react. Then there is also, in quote, radicalism. Teachings and preachings that seem to be so extreme. Nothing stops me, and I think we must all understand this. Nothing stops me from preaching solidly my convictions. But the preaching of that does not call to arms that you should fight me.
Yes.
No.
Hello, 1 second. We lost